it's not the question that I'm really necessarily interested in, but a lot of people are worried about a party that is labelled Islamist. And this is the label that is on Ennahda. There are many fears. Yeah, there are many fears, and I want to know whether, in fact, they're justified. Yes, there are fears, and these fears have been peddled by Ben Ali to frighten people from an opposition that has great appeal and that has said no to injustice and corruption. And Ben Ali has peddled similar fears against others, but it has focused on Ennahda because it has in '89 it proved to be the principal opposition. But Tunisians have seen through these lies and these accusations, and they've said no to Ben Ali and his propaganda, and they remain committed to the struggle for justice and democracy, which Ennahda is an integral part of. I hope you understand why I was asking the question, because that was really what I wanted to get out of you. Let me ask you about your father, Mr. Ghannouchi, obviously not related to the Mr. Ghannouchi who was the Prime Minister. But let me ask you, when he landed back in Tunisia, I think it was when the revolution was still going on, he said he would not be running for president. Does that still stand? That still stands. And what about your party forming, or a political party coming out now that the organisation is no longer banned? Would you like your party to run and field candidates in that election? Ennahda exists as a political party and has existed for decades. It hasn't had legal recognition, but it has been part of this struggle, and it continues to work alongside other political parties and the rest of civil society in Tunisia. It is part of many coalitions, and it believes that it should be through these coalitions and a broad-based consensus that we should move along now towards a real democracy, rather than the attempts we've been seeing at clinging to the past of despotism and corruption. Thanks for talking to us. Good to have you on this Newshour. Yusra Ghannouchi from the Ennahda party. You're watching Al Jazeera, the Newshour here, and just ahead. Why has this extremely popular German government minister decided he's got to go? And live in Benghazi, we'll find out about the difficulties facing aid organisations in Libya when we come back.
On the next Riz Khan Show, women in the revolution. They've been out on the streets making their voices heard, but what role will they get to play in their country's political future? Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
It is in the details, a look, a connection, the moments that reveal the truth. Witness documentaries to open your eyes. At this time on Al Jazeera.
A popular uprising that shook the country to its core. A defiant president under siege from his people. As the protesters took charge of the streets, we look back at the events that are changing Egypt.
I will stay on the air if I can until the police come.
In a special program, Al Jazeera gives you a day-by-day account from those that witnessed them firsthand. Egypt burning, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Good to have you with us. These are the top stories on this Al Jazeera News app. Tunisia's most prominent opposition politician has resigned from the country's interim government. Ahmed Najib Chebi is the third minister to quit the interim cabinet in one day. The United Nations says the number of refugees fleeing violence and chaos in Libya has already topped 140,000. And the US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is warning that Libya's fate is very unclear, with chaos and democracy both possible outcomes. Mrs. Clinton says the US government's exploring every option to address the crisis. Hundreds of African migrant workers are trying to flee Libya following the uprising, saying they've been victims of random attacks by Libyans looking for mercenaries. Jackie Rowland reports.
The attackers came in the night. They set fire to this workshop where Sudanese immigrants were making furniture. The fire destroyed their clothes, their tools, everything. All that's left are a few charred scraps of cloth.
Libyans did this. They're against us because we're black, because of the colour of our skin. They think we're mercenaries, but we're not.
Eastern Libya is rife with rumours about African mercenaries brought in by Gaddafi to put down the uprising. Attacks like this are increasingly common, and some African workers have been imprisoned. No one with black skin is entirely safe.
What we're looking at here is the ugly face of the revolution. When law and order break down, other forces can rise to the surface. In this case, racism against black workers.
These poor immigrants live in squalid conditions on the outskirts of Benghazi. They work on building sites or in factories. Some of them want to use Libya as a stepping stone to get to Europe. But for many, the dream of a better life is turning into a nightmare. These Nigerians are so scared of reprisals that they won't venture outside. This young man's name is Courage, and he needed it a few days ago when he was chased by an angry mob.
When I was coming from my work, I looked at my back, there were cars after me, chasing me. They said I should stop. I can't stop because there were OD cutlass and dangerous weapons with them. I was running for my life. I wish they caught me, that would be the end of my life.
These are violent and uncertain times in Libya. Many African workers say they felt safer under the Gaddafi regime, a stinging criticism of a revolution that aims to bring freedom, tolerance and equality for all. Jackie Rowland, Al Jazeera, Benghazi.
Yeah, let's go live to that city. Peter Bukati is Director of Emergencies at Human Rights Watch, going to talk about the situation of these migrant workers. What's happening to them right now?
Well, there are actually thousands upon thousands of migrant workers seeking to flee the city of Benghazi. Almost 20,000 have already left, but thousands more remain. We are especially concerned about the plight of the African migrants because they have been burned out of their homes. I visited about 1,500 of them yesterday in one specific camp, and no boat which has come here to take other nationals away has been willing to take the Africans who are actually most at threat.
Are you saying that to countries that have provided ships to get their nationals out, and let's talk about, you know, the UK, Turkey, Germany, all of those people, the Italians who've sent boats in there, have actually refused to take these migrants on board?
Yes, it's a very tragic scene here at the harbor every day as these huge cruise ships come to pick up nationals. We've seen cruise ships coming for Chinese, for Vietnamese, for Syrians, for Moroccans every day, and Africans as well as some other poor Asians from Bangladesh.